Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Higginbottom. I'd like to welcome you and your family here, and also say that I appreciate your willingness to serve. Also appreciate that your top priority will be ensuring that our people and posts are safe and secure. I come from a manufacturing background, so it's just sort of in my DNA a process of continuous improvement. And I really think the vital step in any kind of continuous improvement process really is taking a look at what went wrong and trying to get the root cause of it and truly evaluating that. So we have to learn lessons from the past. So with that in mind, I guess I'd just kind of like to ask, how much have you delved into what happened in Benghazi? I mean, which of the reports that have been issued have you read? Let's start there.
Sure, Senator, thank you. I've certainly read the ARB, and the unclassified and the classified version. I've read the State Department's Inspector General report. I've read the Best Panel Practices report. I've read the management review that was recommended by the ARB, and one other I can't think of right now. But I've reviewed most of the major reports that have come out about the incidents in Benghazi and the response to it.
I know the Committee on Homeland Security issued a report with Senators Lieberman and Collins. Did you read that one?
I have not read that one.
Okay, and then I know there are 5 committees in the House that also issued a report. Have you reviewed that?
I have.
Have you also received other secure briefings on Benghazi?
I have not received secure briefings on the events of Benghazi. I have obviously been engaged in conversation around implementation of the recommendations from ARB and the other reports. Okay.
So again, you're pretty thoroughly briefed in terms of what happened. So I just kind of want you to put in your own words, what went wrong there? What was the breakdown?
Senator, I think it's clear that the security was insufficient to deal with the attack that occurred, that there were insufficient, the use of fire as a weapon and other tactics that were used overwhelmed the regional security officers and officials who were there, and that it was a breakdown in security.
But why was the security insufficient? I mean, what was the breakdown in the State Department? Because there were cables going back and forth. The deterioration of the security situation seemed to be pretty well known. And there were actually requests, verbal requests, basically denied. People within the State Department said, do not ask for additional security. I mean, what went wrong within the State Department?
Senator, the Accountability Review Board, when looking at this, I think found that the requests that came up the line for security measures and personnel in Benghazi were largely granted, but there was clearly a problem and it was insufficient. And Senator, I'm committed to ensuring that going forward we have the right processes in place.
Let me just stop you. Are you saying that you really believe that the requests for security were granted by the State Department? Is that your understanding of it?
Senator, many of the requests for security that were granted were. I am not an expert on every cable that was written. I'm being nominated for a position moving forward, looking at security. I'm looking at how we will continue the implementation of the ARB recommendations and the other reports that are out there to ensure this doesn't happen again. I'm not an expert on everything that happened in the department before I got there.
Okay, well, if your top priority is going to be to ensure that our people and posts are safe, I think you need to fully understand what went wrong in the State Department, because those security requests were not granted. They were denied. And not only was security not beefed up, security was ramped down. And I think that you need a very thorough understanding. Quite honestly, the American people need a more thorough understanding of what's happening, which leads me to my next point. Certainly for my constituents, they continue to demand to know what happened. I'm, as a United States Senator, incredibly frustrated that we have been denied access to the survivors to get the information. Do you believe, as a United States Senator, at this point in time, was it 14 months after the attack, do you believe the Senate should be briefed by the survivors of the Benghazi attack?
Senator, I know that there are ongoing discussions right now with Congress about access to the survivors. The Department of Justice has raised concerns about their testimony and their briefing of Congress as it would relate to prosecution of the criminals in this case. The State Department has raised some concerns about the security of our professional security officers, and I'm confident an accommodation can be reached, but I think there are legitimate questions that are being worked through now.
Do you think 14 months is a little bit long in terms of gaining access to those survivors?
Senator, there's been an enormous amount of accommodation and coordination between the State Department and Congress. Secretary Kerry said before this committee and others, he was committed to working with you to answer any legitimate questions, respecting the oversight responsibility. I feel the same way. I look forward to working with you going forward, and I am confident in the case of the survivors that we can work through an accommodation here.
So obviously that's a balancing act. Prosecuting individuals that we don't seem particularly interested in picking up or identifying or finding versus the American people's right to know and Congress's oversight responsibilities. Can you just kind of give me your evaluation of the balance between those two?
Senator, I think that the Congress's oversight responsibilities are important. I worked in this body for a long time. I respect its prerogatives. I think that the department has worked very hard to provide 25,000 documents, many hearings, lots of briefings. Cooperation will continue. Obviously, we have to take into consideration when we're having a discussion about accommodation what the impact could be on the prosecution of the criminals who perpetrated this terrible crime. We have to think about the safety of our officers at the State Department, but I don't think that those things mean we can't come to some agreement or work together on this issue.
Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a prosecutor. I'm not assuming you're a prosecutor either. But
no, sir.
How would members of Congress, maybe even a secured briefing, getting information and being able to interview survivors, how could that possibly affect some future prosecution where we might have these perpetrators on videotape and we know exactly what they did? How is that going to harm a prosecution?
Senator, I don't want to speak for the Justice Department, but in the communications that they have had with Congress, they have indicated that should the identities become known, it would be possible for the defense to do research on them, that their safety and security could be at
that
risk.
speaks to maybe we should do this in a secured setting.
Senator, this isn't for my decision. I don't want to speak for the Department of Justice, but I look forward to working with you on this and other issues if I'm confirmed.
Okay. I just want to go on the record. I think the whole smokescreen of having prosecutions be the reason that we're not able to gain access to the survivors is strictly that. I think that it has no basis. It's an excuse. It's a very poor excuse. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.